Howdy folks, my name is Rosemary James, also known as Cozy Cowboy on the interwebs, and the week before Secrets of Strixhaven dropped, I shared with you my strong opinions on the new cards I was high on, and some I wasn't very excited for, coming into the Pauper format. Since then, I've discussed these cards extensively, monitored their performances in leagues and challenges, and tried some myself. Today, we're going to go over what I got right, what I got wrong, and what flew entirely under the radar. Our first card is Spirit Mascot, a 2/2 Spirit Ox for a red and a white that says whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Coming into the release of Secrets of Strixhaven, I was really high on this card. So high, in fact, that I brewed my own deck and jammed it incessantly against friends. I made tweaks, I rented it out about as fast as I could on MTGO. I was so excited for this card. Thankfully, I'm happy to report that Spirit Mascot is really that good. Just maybe not in the exact shell that I was expecting. On Tuesday, Italy's resident Mardu pilot lost on Cato, won 10 straight matches en route to an undefeated league trophy with Spirit Mascot in what he calls a Boros Spirits Brew. The deck leverages several aggressive discard spells, namely Faithless Looting, Thrilling Discovery, and another newcomer I was high on in Pursue the Past, along with 6 Eidolons to constantly be in and out of the graveyard, generating extreme card advantage while passively pumping Spirit Mascot. Inside Out and Tribe combo also makes an appearance on this list, as Tribe gets your Eidolons in the graveyard and Inside Out pulls them back into your hand, meaning your Spirit Mascot and your Tireless Tribe get insanely yoked, and then you can go for the aggro kill. Of course, I'd be remiss to skip over the inclusion of Sneaky Snacker. Couple this with protection pieces and burn a la Lightning Bolt, and you have an airtight 60 cards that looks poised to break out into the meta. Several other pilots have taken this deck to league trophies since Lost on Cato's first 5-0, with a few taking the deck to this weekend's challenges. One player, MTGO user Emo Goblin, took their list to a challenge and piloted it to a terrific top 8, going 5-2 with 4 copies of Spirit Mascot, the card's best showing so far. My final verdict? After seeing this brew's spectacular results, I'm still super high on Spirit Mascot's meta impact, even if I was just a little off base on where it would find a home. This card has done everything I wanted and more, making my evaluation pretty darn good in hindsight. The next card I want to talk about is Pursue the Past. Pursue the Past is a sorcery for a red and a white that says you gain 2 life. You may discard a card. If you do, draw 2 cards. Afterwards, you can flash it back for 2 generic red and white. Pursue the Past was a card that made it onto my shortlist, but one I pretty seriously underestimated. I thought it would be good. I mean, it fills all the slots that Thrilling Discovery did in the past, but it seems more like an instant adopt in several format relevant decks, in a way I didn't expect. As mentioned before, Lost on Cato's Boros Spirits deck uses not only 4 Thrilling Discoveries, but an additional 4 Pursue the Past as a multicolor enabler and advantage engine. Boros Spirits isn't the only archetype that's picked this spell up though. Pilot Serpico94 snagged a trophy running a Naya Gates shell. This deck runs Sneaky Snacker alongside Faithless Looting, Melded Moxite, and Pursue the Past to get as much value as possible. A couple creatures that can come back from the graveyard and 4 Malevolent Rumbles means constant value and advantage with the Gates package to seal the deal. Pilot Hatare Anna took a similar list, one that leverages Moxite and Pursue the Past to aggressively comb through the deck, to a top 8 in Saturday's challenge, making Pursue the Past the first Secrets of Strixhaven card to top 8 in Pauper. It seems like Pursue the Past might be a serious value piece in any deck that runs Boros colors, enough so that I suspect it could become a staple in any deck that can justify the slots. My final verdict? I seriously underestimated Pursue the Past. I knew it was going to be good, but I didn't expect it was going to be this good. The third card on my list is Page Looseleaf. Page Looseleaf is an 0/2 legendary artifact creature construct for 2 generic that says tap to add 1 colorless mana, Grandeur. Discard another card named Page Looseleaf. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal an instant or sorcery card. Put that card into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. One notable snub from my original video was Page Looseleaf. Page is a pretty niche combo piece. Alone, it's a 2-for-1 mana rock, but when you draw a second copy, you can discard it to reveal cards from the top of your deck until you hit an instant or sorcery, then put that into your hand. As an aggro player, I didn't really get this card at first. You have to draw multiple, it's pretty ineffective on its own, and I wasn't familiar with the combo decks in Pauper that it could actually really get any value out of. Calicays here on YouTube and X seemed to figure it out. Slotted into a Cycle Storm build to find copies of your combo pieces, Page makes room by slimming down on 1 land, a copy of Cabal Ritual, and 2 Horror of the Broken Lands. Calicays took his Cycle Storm brew on a 10-1 run, dropping just 1 game in his trophy, touting Page as the possible future of Cycle Storm. While I have no plans of playing this deck anytime soon, Jake has a great YouTube video where he shows off his full trophy run, which I'll link down below. Other players have made similar 5-0 runs, with ex-user Cornetto earning a trophy with a nearly identical list. When I asked him what he thought about including Page in the list, he told me, "It's good once the ball gets rolling. Unfortunately, the first copy is still very bad. First impression is that the card is a bit high roll, so I would rather have a more stable deck, but it's much better than I anticipated." As high-risk cards are just about the lifeblood of combo decks, I suspect we'll see more lists make the gamble and run 4 of Page in the coming weeks. Bryant Cook from the Epic Storm has a great deck tech going over the advantages of Page and Cycle Storm, which I'll link down below. It's a really great watch, and it puts into perspective just why Page actually succeeds so well in this Cycle Storm shell. My final verdict? I messed this up. I completely and totally missed. This card is shaping up to be an all-star. It's seeing a lot of play right now, and I assumed it was just bad combo bait in disguise. The next card I want to talk about is Follow the Lumarets. Follow the Lumarets is a green sorcery for 1 and a green that says Infusion. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature or land card from among them and put it into your hand. If you gain life this turn, you may instead reveal 2 creatures and or land cards from among them and put them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Though I didn't mention Lumarets in my video, I actually replied to a couple of comments on here and Reddit, essentially arguing that this card was simply a worse version of already prevalent Pauper staples, like Malevolent Rumble, Commune with the Gods, and Lead the Stampede. However, one brewer found a use for it that, in hindsight, I probably should have been expecting. In Moto user Maril Zero Ambra's Green-White Gates list, they run a whopping 9 functionally similar green cantrips by running 4 Rumbles, 1 Commune with the Gods, and 4 Follow the Lumarets, each with their own specialties that work in tandem with Gates. The Rumbles find everything and make a body, drawing you 1 permanent as any faithful green draw spell should. The copies of Lumarets, however, have a hidden advantage. In the Gates package, the Rumbles can find you one of your many enchantments, creatures, or gates to get off the ground. Lumarets can also find a creature or gate, but if you meet its condition to gain life, namely through your copies of things like Armadillo Cloak, Outlaw Medic, or Sacred Cat, you can draw a creature and a gate, generating huge advantage and progressing your game plan off of this 1 cantrip. This is a huge upside compared to Malevolent Rumble, and even if it ultimately isn't as good as the Rumbles are, it seems like a really nice pickup in an already strong Green-White Gates list as a clutch way to get the pieces you need on the board. Since Ambra's Trophy, other Nihilists have followed suit in trying Lumarets, so far resulting in at least 1 other League trophy and multiple appearances in this week's challenges. One pilot, Abalem Cordero on X, even took a list running 4 Lumarets to a 78-person online tournament, going 5-0 in play, good enough for a first-place finish. Lumarets also made a surprise appearance in Fabio Sturm's Monster Tron list, as a way to search for both a big threat once Tron is assembled, and a last-ditch effort to find the last pieces of Tron, or both if you can combine it with Candy Trail or Brambleworm. This seems like a neat piece of tech, especially as a niche 2 of, but no one else has found a trophy with it since Sunday. My final verdict? I totally overlooked the upside of this card. If I could go back and remake my video to include it, I 100% would. This was a huge snub on my part. Our 5th card is Elite Interceptor. Elite Interceptor is a 1/2 human wizard creature for 1 white that says this creature enters prepared. Elite Interceptor's prepared spell is Rejoinder. It's a sorcery for 1 and a white that says you may tap or untap target creature, draw a card. If you don't know how prepared works, go back and watch my first video I made on Secrets of Strixhaven where I explain both what prepared does and why I thought this card wasn't going to do great in the Pauper meta. Elite Interceptor is a card that everyone knew was going to struggle. Its potential upside over the evergreen Thraben and Novice Inspectors, that is, putting away a blocker to get through for big damage, is evident, but so is its downside. It's a more white intensive version of the inspectors we already know and use, and its prepared spell is a sorcery, meaning it can't be held up like a clue token can for a cantrip on your opponent's end step. The flaws are glaring, and, not to scratch my own back here, but I pointed them out pretty succinctly in my original video. Still, brewers overseas wanted to put paper to playmat to really find out whether the pros outweighed the cons. So far, we've seen 4 lists try out Elite Interceptor in a white weenie shell, the only home where the Interceptor really makes any sense. At IPT Pauperissima, a near 200-player Pauper tournament in Milan, Italy, 2 pilots dared to include copies of Elite Interceptor. One player, Damiano Manarbin, made the top 16 cut with his version of White Weenie, which runs 2 Elite Interceptors alongside 2 Novice Inspectors and 4 Thraben Inspectors. The other players failed to make top cut, along with the 2 pilots who tried and failed to make Interceptor work at 86-player Central Liga Gaúcha de Pauper 2026 in Brazil. My final verdict? Until we see Elite Interceptor perform any better than a 1 or 2 of in some experimental decks, I think my judgment on this card as too slow to succeed is pretty bang on, though I don't think it took a rocket scientist to come to that conclusion. Our 6th card is another card that I left off of my original list. Embrace the Paradox is a Simic instant that costs 3 generic, a green, and a blue. That says, draw 3 cards. You may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. I'm pretty sure I didn't read Embrace the Paradox when I read through every Strixhaven common the first time. On my 2nd, 3rd, and 4th read-throughs, I'm almost positive I wrote it off as a worse version of every other 5-mana draw 3. I, like just about every other Pauper content creator, brushed over this card as draft chaff, designed solely for limited. One Turbofog player disagreed. Alessandro Moretti, whose awesome video on this deck I'll link below, decided to tack on 3 copies of Embrace the Paradox to his Turbofog list he brought to IPT Pauperissima. From his perspective, Embrace the Paradox essentially functions as a mid-game growth spiral, enabling Turbofog to ramp into enough mana to keep casting their fogs, while also drawing 3 cards to keep it on rate with other blue draw spells like Lorien Revealed. So far, this deck list has served Moretti very well, with Moretti piloting this deck in person to a 6-win, 2-loss, top 16 finish at IPT Pauperissima, a 4-1 league finish, and respectable 4-2 and 3-3 finishes on this weekend's challenges. My final verdict? Never in a million years would I or could I have guessed that this card was going to do well. This is a huge surprise, but not one that I can say anybody saw coming. Our next card was the first prepared spell that got revealed for the Pauper format, Studious First-Year. Studious First-Year is a 1/1 bear wizard creature for 1 green that says this creature enters prepared. Studious First-Year's prepared spell is Rampant Growth, which is a sorcery that costs 1 and a green that says search your library for a basic land card. Put that card onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. When First-Year originally got revealed, I said that it would struggle to find a home in Pauper and likely not find a shell it could really fit into, barring a small inclusion in something like, I don't know, Spy Combo or Jund Wildfire. Since the set has dropped, I've been searching this card's name every day on just about every site and have yet to see a single deck use this card. Sadly, despite being a cool card with a new mechanic, it just doesn't command enough early presence to justify its inclusion over other cards that can do what Rampant Growth does. My final verdict? Unless we see this card make a surprise appearance somewhere, I have to say I got my expectations on this card pretty darn close. It doesn't have a home, and it couldn't even sneak its way into the shells I thought could maybe find a place for it. My 8th and final card to show you is Melancholic Poet. Melancholic Poet is a 2/2 elf bard creature for 1 and a black that says, Repartee. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets a creature, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Oops. This card did not do well at all. For your viewing pleasure and my own shame, I will leave this screenshot up for 10 more seconds. Sorry, Nunya. Is it too early to say definitively whether these cards are going to have any real staying power? Of course! But that's half the fun. If you think a new card is missing, or have been going 4-1 with a brand new brew you're dying for others to see, leave a comment and let me know. Who knows? You might have a brand new tech that finds its way into a challenge sometime. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel, consider taking a look at my Ko-Fi, and boost this video any way you can so that other Pauper players can get my videos in their recommended. As always, I'm Rosemary James, also known as Cozy Cowboy on the interwebs. Thank you for watching and take care.